Good evening, everyone. It's so good to have you in the Wellbeing Cafe again. Thursday evening for us here in England, and for some of you across the waters, it could be just around your lunchtime or just after lunch. But welcome, we really do welcome you. So good to see smiling faces, even in difficult seasons, difficult circumstances. We are learning. Sometimes for us it's a practice, sometimes it's a bit of a deliberate piece to smile. So can we just do that to each other? Just smile. I mean, this is a serious conversation, but we're going to smile at each other and just... There's an old song we used to sing when in Sunday schools. It was smile for a while and give your face a rest. Your smile, to smile, it uses less muscles than to frown. So let's just relax a bit and smile.
Yeah, I'll be smiling.
See some teeth. All right, brilliant. Well, I'm so glad that we're here tonight. It's that place where we can think well, live well, and we want to be well. And so at the Institute of Wellbeing, that's our aim, to just help us along our life's journeys, and recognizing that sometimes those journeys are full of ups and sometimes they're full of downs, and it's just learning to manage, to just navigate those difficult terrains. And I'm hoping that today, just like last week and the week before, we've been doing this for approximately a year now. Just like every other time you've been here, you leave in a better state than you came, because you're going to need this today. What we talk about today, I'm sure at some point soon you're going to need it. It's a critical piece. It's a serious conversation, and a solemn conversation, but in the same breath we want to be in the best mood we can to absorb information, so that we're strengthened when we deliver it to someone who needs it. Does that make any sense? Yeah. So we're going to posture ourselves in a position to receive. We've got three wonderful leading ladies tonight. We've got one of our special guests. I haven't seen her for such a while, but I've just heard how much walking she does, and she lives for walking.
I do.
There's a number of wonderful other projects that she gets involved in. Serbs, it's really good to see you. Really,
So good to see you. Yes, it's been a good 6 months. I was at the beginning with you guys last year.
Absolutely.
And I did get a lot of inspiration through the Wellbeing Cafe, I might add. So thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you, Sebs. And I can't wait to hear about what you're doing and how you can lead us in this conversation tonight. Thank you for joining us. And we've got our wonderful Wellbeing ambassador. You see her all over our Instagram dancing and helping people. She does so much work for the Institute, and we really celebrate her. Elle Cato, she's a world-renowned singer, and she's given us her time, and I'm really grateful for that. Thank you, Elle, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to hear from you. It's a difficult season, but we're going to hear from you, hopefully some strategies as well. And we also have a wonderful guest who I'm recognizing is Elle's niece, right? But in her own right, she stands tall. She's a fantastic poet. I've seen your work. I've heard it. Zanai, have I said that correctly? You're muted. Please unmute. Did I say it correctly? Zanai?
Jane.
So we create a J somewhere. Jane. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for joining us tonight.
That's okay. Thanks for having
up
me.
your time. Dr. Lightbourne, all the way from the Bahamas. Really do greet you. Our regulars, the Sabrinas, David, Naomi, Stella, Queen, and the others, Rox, and my good friend Dane, who I went to school with. This guy, he's a giant. He's my good friend, my really good friend. Honest John conversations from I nearly said 40 years ago, but it's a long time. We've known each other a long time. Thank you for joining me tonight, Dane, and welcome Keith and Marie and everyone else who's joining us for the first time. Welcome. We're going to have an important conversation today. Stuff that we need to know and stuff that our children need to know. And to be fair, I've got quite a bit of notes, but I sense that we may have to do a bit of freestyling because it's going to have to be a bit of an open conversation. But I've got some pointers to guide me. And I think what I want to do, no, I don't think, I know what I want to do first. And it's something that triggered this session a couple of weeks ago. Myself and Ricky talked about it. And it hurt me. It really did hurt me. It was like more than a punch in the stomach. It really hurt to lose the young man, Richard. And the whole of London, whole of England's been concerned, thinking about the missing young man. 18 years old. And we don't know the full story yet. It's unfolding. We understand that the police are being taken through some investigationary process. So we can't really comment. But what we can recognize is that a mother has lost her son. And so can we please, before we rush into anything, can we just do a minute silence? Just as a sign of respect. Rick, if you could just keep the time for me, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. It's just lost for words as to how a mother must be feeling right now. To know that your son left to say whatever he said and he didn't come home. And why it strikes me particularly, so I've got a son the same age. I know Elle, you've got a son similar age. I think a year older. And Dane, you've got a son same age group, and it strikes a chord because it could have been ours, you know. And it triggers the conversation around mental health. And what was the young man going through? What was his thoughts? What was he thinking about? How long was he thinking about it? Did his mum, Evidence Joel, God bless her, did she observe anything? Or was it just acceptable because we're in lockdown and frustration, not seeing friends, family, playing sport, university, college, all of this is stress. Tough times. So tough times. And so, I mean, Sabrina, I know you've got a young daughter as well. And anyone else in the room, it strikes a harsh chord. So I would like to, first off, just bring some perspective. There is an organization called Young Minds, and they've recently done a survey. I'll quote some stats based on their research. Oops. It basically says that many young people are experiencing mental health issues and they're struggling to cope during this winter lockdown and fear that the pandemic will have a long-term negative effect on their lives. '25, and the research shows that many are struggling with isolation, loss of faith in their prospects for their future, and the heavy academic pressure for those who are learning from home. Parents have had to become teachers. Children are sharing laptops and...
Sorry, Mike, I think we may have just lost some audio there.
I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now, okay? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. You know, home has become school, but without colleagues, without friends, without mates, buddies. You know, we've become digital, and children need to express. Young men's creating testosterone, they need it expended. So it's been tough for them. And then this whole pressure around, especially for those who are doing exams, where you're going to be measured. And I think for the first 2 months in lockdown, many kids just weren't taking it seriously about this exam. It was just like an extended holiday for a while. And then lo and behold, it's caught them up. The pressure's on. So 75% of those that took the survey agreed that they found the current lockdown harder to cope than the previous ones. 67% believe the pandemic will have a long-term negative effect on their mental health. Long-term, this is what young children believe. It's going to have a long-term effect on their mental health. It's serious. But in the same breath, 79% of them believe that their mental health will improve as we start to ease lockdown restrictions. I'll give you a few more stats and then we'll open up the conversation. Actually, I'm gonna go straight into the conversation because I think it's really important. Let me start with Serbs. Serbs, how do we read the tea leaves? How do we observe the signs? And how do we have those difficult conversations with young people? Because remember, just adolescence alone makes, if I can use this word, quirky, it makes them hard to read. Plus anxiety, plus lockdown, plus isolation, plus I can't go and buy my trainers. I can't do the things that that create my identity. So how do we speak to young people? How do we observe the signs and perhaps talk to them about their mental health?
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Kelly. My daughter Maya, she's 19 years old, so I'm actually in our bedroom. She's staying with a friend because she's going through a stage where she's like lots of changes and what have you. I lost my mum February the 15th, so she's had a big change in terms of where she was going to go live with her dad. She's now coming to live back home with me, and I live with mum and dad, or dad now. So her whole life is sort of like in turmoil. You know, it's so aside from COVID, you know, last year she didn't sit her exam. She had already made a decision that she didn't want to go to uni. It was just something she said, "Mum, it's not for me." I said, "Okay, that's fair enough." And so the way I've had to deal with it, you know, 19-year-old, is just constantly talking, keeping connected, involving her in stuff that I'm doing, family stuff, whether it's work stuff, and as you know, my project that I do with the lunches, just getting her on board with everything. And we can get so busy as parents, and I'm not blaming parents, but in terms of, I know I myself, I can get really busy doing things, and you sort of like almost can neglect that side of it, sort of thing. So it's always pulling her in, talking to her, and just listening to her as well. Although she'll probably say I don't listen to her, you know, she'll probably say, Mum, you never listen to me, that kind of thing. You know, teenagers, they look at you differently. But and this whole notion about trying to be their friend, I don't think I've ever tried to be my daughter's friend. I am her mum, and there's boundaries, you know. And one of the things I've always said to Maya is that she can come to me no matter what. There's nothing that's going to shock me, you know, sort of thing. So it's just having those open dialogues constantly, and love, just showing her love all the time. You know, on the days that you don't even have it yourself, but you sort of thing. But yeah, that's how I've had to with my daughter. Obviously, I'm part of a church as well, where we deal with a lot of youth, and we have like a youth pastor and what have you. A few of the youth surround me through Maya and what have you, conversations with her friends, what are her friends like, what are they doing, that kind of thing. And just, you know, if I feel Maya's sort of feeling down, just sort of say to one of their friends, you know, I think Maya's feeling down, just have a chat with her and see what's up, that kind of thing. Because sometimes they might always share things with parents, but they will with their friends, sort of thing, without sort of prying, you know. But yeah, so that's how myself has had to deal with it. And especially being a single parent, although dad is involved, Maya sees her dad sort of every other weekend kind of thing, but it just plays a bigger, she lives with me, so we're together, we're constantly together and what have you. So but yeah, so this is how I sort of dealt with things with Maya. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. So the essence there for me, what I gathered is that you listen more.
Yeah.
And you conversate more. Now, just before I move on to Elle, has that increased during lockdown? Your conversational repertoire, has that increased?
Absolutely. I mean, I actually took on a counselling course to learn about listening, because, you know, counselling is about active listening and, you know, mirroring, paraphrasing, all that kind of stuff. I actually had to, as a parent, go seek that course and do it, and pass, thankfully, just to learn. Because thing is, we can never learn enough. You know, we don't have the answers. We as parents, we don't have the answers. So it's a constant education process, journey, learning things. How can I better deal with this? If I feel something's not gone wrong, how could I have done it better? So, you know, just looking to other resources to help equip myself as a parent. So yeah, definitely during lockdown, I've had to do a lot of soul searching myself. Yeah. But yeah, the dialogue has increased more so. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well done, Serbs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Elle, now you've got a son.
Yeah.
And Serbs just talked about the relationship with a daughter, which might be a bit more girly. Some of the challenges that young boys face can be quite difficult. You're in South London. Yeah. He's not flavour of the month. Yeah. He's at risk from gangs, from the police, 9 times more likely to be stopped and searched. How do you communicate to him? How do you know what's going on in his head? How do you know he could come home and just smile and give you the cues to make you feel everything's fine? How do you know when your son is struggling?
I think with my son, he's 18, but with him, he can't hide it. It's usually written all over his face. So when things have happened to him in the past, straight away he's told me. So I don't, and I haven't allowed him to go in Croydon town centre, because I remember a police officer telling me that they would take, when they did the stop and search, when they were allowed to do stop and search, I think it was over a week's period, they lifted 150 knives off of youths in Croydon in a day. So I was like, you are not going, you can go around right and tell you are not going through it. It's not going to happen. But in terms of communication, my nephew in 2019 took his life. So with my son, I'm constantly asking him how he is, to the point where I get on his nerves. And he said to me, "Oh, mummy, please." You know, the other day I just walked away in the end because he said, "Mummy, please," because I just kept saying, "Are you okay?" Every day I say, "How you doing? Are you okay?" Because, you know, communication is key. If and when they stop talking and when they stop asking for help, that's when you know something is up, when they go quiet. So I make sure I ask if they're okay, if he's eaten, how his friends are, you know, if he's got a girlfriend, how his girlfriend is, you know. I want to know about everyone around him. I even ask how his teacher is. How's your teacher? You know, I constantly.
So he's told you he's got a girlfriend. Yeah, he's told you. You're doing pretty good for him to open up and tell you that. All right. So
he told me, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear about your nephew.
That was
how old was he?
31. But I think he found out he was suffering with bipolar for about a year prior to. No, I think it was about 10 months prior to him taking his life. He was diagnosed with bipolar tendencies. But it was shocking, just because he was the life and soul of the party. He's very chatty, very animated, very quirky, but highly intelligent, you know.
Right, so that's my point. Sorry, El, sorry to jump in there, but that's my point. This guy is the life and soul of the party. He's not demonstrating low vibrational behavior.
No. He would confide in me. He would confide in me and talk to me about things that he was going through and things that had troubled him in his past, but not things that I thought he would take his life for, if you know what I mean. So as much as we talk about things that troubled him as in growing up, I didn't think as a 31-year-old man with a daughter that he would even attempt to take his life, to be honest, because he was very, so I just thought that he was going to be okay. So that was shocking.
Wow. Thank you, El. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to go to my friend Dane, because Dane's got a young man. He's at some point I want him to connect with El's son as well. They're both in the music business. Very street savvy, very smart man. Oh my goodness. So Dane, how do you observe your young man's behavior, knowing that he's been cooped up at home?
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
I can.
Okay, cool.
You're a bit quiet, Dane.
Can you hear me now?
Are you able to turn up a little bit?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, hi everybody. Yes, my son's 19. Quite a few 19-year-old kids in the forum at the moment, which is good. Can you hear me now? Okay.
We can. It's a bit quiet, but we will strain our ears.
All right, I'll speak up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, what I've tried to do basically is try and open all key communications with him, as one of the previous talkers was saying. I try and keep him focused on activities that will keep him occupied mentally. I think that's very important. Try and basically sort of communicate with him as much as possible on things that he wants to talk about. So I make it more about him, yeah, and sort of work around him, and just trying to keep them upbeat, try to keep them laughing, watch a funny film. You really just try and keep the spirits up, try to keep them as humorous as possible. And that's what we're trying to do. And sort of counting down to the easing of lockdown, you know, sort of planning some of the things he wants to do. Obviously, he's interested in music, so we tried to focus him on music, do as much of that as possible, structured program that we put in place, and just try and kind of being structured as possible and supportive. And God's willing, hopefully we'll get through this in one piece. Yeah. So so far so good.
Thank you, Dane. Thank you very much. So your strategies to keep those lines of communications open and be involved in his life. Let it be about him.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah, let the focal point be about them, because normally now, normally they would have their own friends, they'll have their own routine, they'll have their own things that they're doing, and because the routine has changed, it's really important that we focus more on them and to ensure that they basically are getting the love and affection and support that they deserve and need. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, thank you, Dane.
Oh, no worries.
I've got a question to the room. Has anyone's child ever said to them, I'm struggling with my mental health, or I feel depressed? Now, if you're willing to, please share. If you don't have to, if it's private. Are you with me? This is just seeing how we can learn from each other, because if it's not your children, it could be your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, your neighbors' children. So any strategies that you have, has anyone ever experienced that sort of difficulty, first-hand experience? And how did you feel when you heard it?
I'd say my child has said that he has feelings that he doesn't recognize, because sometimes you won't always think that it's depression or a feeling of low. Sometimes it's just a feeling of being stuck in a rut and not wanting to do anything. So, we've spoken about that, but sometimes I'll say, obviously not to paint over any cracks or anything like that, but sometimes I'll say, I have days where I don't want to get out of bed as a mum, but it doesn't mean I'm depressed. Sometimes I just want some rest. So I do say to them, don't always think too deep into it, because it might not always be depression or feeling. It might just be that you need a break from the outside world and you need 24 hours yourself or a couple of days yourself where you just want to chill and lock off communication. Sometimes that is normal, just to regather your energy and your thoughts, because sometimes life can be draining. So I have had conversations like that with my son. But I know I'm probably the most annoying mother, because I do ask, because of everything that's happened in my family, I do ask all the time if he's okay, every day. And I think that is important, just to ask, because you don't know what's going on through their head, and you don't know what they're feeling until they actually say, actually, mummy, I'm feeling this today. And then you're like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's open that channel.
Yes, this is brilliant stuff. A few weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago now, I'd done a session in the CAF about the third ear listening to understand. And sometimes that is juxtaposition to listening as a parent with authority. Because you may have to change your approach. You may have to change your tact, your boundaries, your culture in your home in order to listen to understand, rather than listen to do as I say. Do you get what I'm saying? So oftentimes, especially if you're an authoritarian parent, you give instructions, you set the rules, you set the agenda, you set the criteria and the behavior expectations. Now we're having to adjust us so that we can develop a hearing ability to understand, not just to hear what's said, but to hear with understanding. And that's really, really important. So as Serb says, then you can ask reflective questions. You can ask questions that they may not expect you to ask. You can give scenarios, which I think is really important. There's a young lady I'd love to hear from today. I love hearing her speak. Nicole Haynes. I'm going to come to you shortly, Janae. 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 Let me write that down so I don't say it incorrectly again. Janae. Nicole, how are you this evening? Are you able to speak to us? I'd love to hear from you. How are you?
Yeah,
Tell us
good.
some of your strategies of managing. I know you've got a daughter and you're a grandmother, right?
Yes,
Yes.
evening. Oh, God, I wasn't expecting to speak. I was just here to listen and
You got a
say
lot to contribute.
hi. Oh gosh. And hi, Serbs. I don't even remember me. Are you right? Yeah. What did you want to know? Sorry.
How do you observe mental health challenges in young people, and what do you do to help them and help yourself, because you could be suffering as a result of the behavior of your child?
That's very true. Well, I think obviously you know my story or my part of my journey, what's been happening during lockdown with my daughter and my family, etc. The question, just going back to the question you just asked about if anybody's child has actually spoken to their parent about them being depressed, this actually happened today. My daughter actually WhatsApped me this morning and she said, "Oh, Mum, I'm feeling really depressed." So whereas in the past I've been like, okay, this is what you need to do. We need to speak to someone. I took a step back to them. I said, okay, how are you feeling depressed? What's making you feel that way? And she was like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm cooped up and I need to get out. So I said, okay, well, go for a walk then. She's got a Finsbury Park across the road from my house. I said, go for a walk. Take the baby out and go for a walk. And she's like, oh, can you take the baby? Now, whereas before I'd be like, yeah, bring him. I said, actually, no, I can't do that today. I've got things to do myself. So I've kind of put the responsibility back on her because obviously she's 19 as well. She's going to be 20 next month. So she's a young mum and she's had a baby during lockdown. And the services that are normally available to new parents have just not been available to her. So I've just had to be that parent to just basically, I've had to fight tooth and nail for her to get some support because it has affected her mental health quite a lot, quite badly. And she's had times where I can quite openly say she's had times where she has felt suicidal, and it's been a case of, right, okay, we need to talk. And she's the type of child that she won't speak. So she will, when everything's getting on top of her, it comes out through her lashing out. So she'll like, kind of, and so I'm having to learn or relearn with her, because she's my firstborn, that actually that's not what you do. And I need to then take her through the processes of, because now she's a mother, these are the processes that you need to take when you're starting to feel a bit low. Maybe even down to her diet. We've even started looking at her diet as well now and looking at the food that she's eating, which can also contribute, or what we're learning is also contributing to how you can feel. How have I been? Every day is a different day. Every day is a completely different day. But I am quite a big advocate for parents and parents just talking to their children. And actually, even with my 6-year-old, you know, I've been with him, he's in the process of actually, we're looking at getting him referred for a diagnosis on autism. He's had a mini assessment done by a psychologist, and she's saying, yeah, there's definitely traits there and traits of high functioning. And we had a conversation and she's saying, it's not even a case of it's a bad thing. And I said, no, it's what it is, if that's the case, if that's the diagnosis when it happens. But it's about me also learning how to actually deal with him quite effectively, because he's, for a 6-year-old, he's up there. You talk to him, you think you're talking to another adult in the place. And one of the things I said to the woman was, actually, I need to make sure that he's protected when he gets to secondary school age, because I don't want it to be seen as a behavioural problem, because he's quite articulate and he will speak out and he does speak his mind, even at age 6. I don't want it to lead to them thinking he's got an attitude or a behavioural problem because he's got a condition. So I'm taking the steps now at the age that he is now to make sure that when he gets to that age and beyond, you know, so he can deal with life effectively. And it's quite wearing as a parent doing it on my own. It is quite wearing and quite tiring. It's quite tiring. So yeah, dealing with a daughter who's got her own mental health issues, dealing with a son who's got potential autism issues, dealing with a grandbaby, and then me. I think the last time I was in the cafe was talking about taking time for myself, and I said, yeah, but how do I do it? Because especially now, whilst we're still in this lockdown period, and I've actually got my diary, and 2 days a week I block out. I don't even switch on the phone. For one of the days, I don't switch on the phone at all. For the other day, I'll have the phone on, but I'll have it on divert, and I'll send a message out to those who need to know to say, I'm around. My phone's not on, but I'm around. If you need me, just message me. But if you don't get a response straight away, there's nothing wrong, but I'm just having a me day, because I've actually found that has helped me. Even though I've had my little boy around, just having time to just switch off and go for a walk, go to the park. Or if I don't want to get out of bed, just stay in bed and watch telly and get up and cook or what have you and just rest my mind, that has helped me a lot as well.
Fantastic.
That's about it, really.
Everyone, can we just give Nicole some love via a hand clap? Just to say, Nick, you're loved, you're doing a great job. It must be
thank you.
extremely tough. And one of the things I respect is the fact that you have said, look, 2 days of the week, and that's brilliant. That's good self-management, and you know, if you can make it 3.
Right. But I have to give credit where credit's due. If it wasn't for me finding the cafe months ago, well, last year, and actually being a part of it, even though it's like intermittent, I'm not here regularly, but if it hasn't been for that, if it wasn't for you guys, I truly don't know where I'd be right now. I'd probably be like on the floor in a crumble somewhere, a mess. No, definitely, seriously.
Wow, Nicole, keep going, because you're needed. You're a trooper. You're the matriarch. You're a very, very important person to your children, and even just sharing what you've said today, I'm sure has helped someone.
That's nice.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for sharing today.
No problems. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, Miss Wallace, I'm not going to attempt your first name again. Welcome to the CAF, my dear. So good to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts. You've heard the sort of train of the conversation. As a young person, how is it for you guys? What's going on? What do you hear on the street that the parents will never hear? What's the conversation on the ground? Do you get what I'm saying?
So I'm 17, currently in my second year of education, so A-levels, and I've struggled a lot, I will say, personally, with my mental health. I'm not really, as you say, the word on the street, I'm more in my books, I'm not really a part of that. But I will say it's very hard for someone my age, talking to my friends, talking to cousins, talking to other family members. For people our age, it is very hard. And especially with the lockdown going on, I would say personally with the statistics you said, I struggled more in the first lockdown than the previous ones, or the current one we are in. But I just find I feel like the role of friend or family member or therapist or parent needs to completely be erased when it comes to talking about mental health. I feel as though in school, for example, we will be told, go to a teacher or go to a parent or go to a guardian. But as soon as those labels come into play, I think there's a fear factor. I feel as though if I was to go to a teacher, they could tell a parent or they could tell a family member, or they could even talk about me in the staff room sort of thing. But and then telling a parent, they could tell other family members. And I just feel like in that instance, you just need a person. It's not in particular a parent, it's not in particular a teacher or someone of high authority. It could just be a friend. It could even be a pet. Like I've heard friends talking to their cats, talking to their dogs. It's just someone, so you don't feel alone in that moment. Yes. Even if you, for example, I write poetry, as you know, that for me is my person. I don't need to all the time go to a friend or go to a family member that is my person. And I realize that person is often myself, because in those poems I'm talking to myself. I read it back and I realize, oh, this is what I feel as I've written it. So it's not always a person, it's not always a authority figure. It could genuinely be a hobby that you need to turn to, or a TV show, or anything like that.
Wow. I'm blown away by your candor, your posture, how you articulate, you've explained how you feel. And we learned something here about these boundaries around titles, you know, where we should learn to disarm first and just be there. You see, so we're learning to listen and allowing that person to talk. That's the only rules of engagement.
Definitely.
Never listen, to let them talk. I think Dr. Lightbourne shared some of that on Tuesday. At some point in tonight's session, I would love her to talk about those 5,000 words as well. So you said your poetry helps you.
Yes, definitely.
Right? Is there anything else that you find? I mean, some of Serbs talked about going for walks, and Ricky's done a 15-mile walk this morning, or however many. Is there a lot of higher intensity exercise?
For me personally, exercise is a no-go for me. But I would say when I'm around family, for example, I might just need a distraction, or I don't know, playing games or watching movies. I think being around family and being around good friends helps me.
Tonight you're the star of the show, right? So it's about young people tonight, really. So do you find that being online is a good escape, or is that where troubles are located?
I think it depends on your following. For example, I may have once followed a page that I found was very toxic, didn't help me, so I unfollowed. For example, like the meme pages, or like where they put they're supposed to be funny videos, but they're not. I think I have that maturity to know it's not good for me, it's toxic for me, and remove myself from it. Sometimes it can be positive. Like, for example, I follow poetry pages, so I love hearing other things. But at the same time, I feel like when you're very low, you often compare yourselves to other people. And I think that's what, when I am low and I'm on social media, that is what would bring me down even more. And I think unless you're very, very secure in yourself, it's something you can't really escape from, because social media is, as we all know, it is very fake. The smiles that we may put on for 5 minutes are not the same as soon as the cameras are turned off. So it's something I think, I personally did steer away from. I think when I was very low, particularly in the first lockdown, Netflix was my best friend. Again, I don't think that helped me, but until my parents managed to bring me out of my bedroom, that was when I started to feel a bit more high, feel a bit more elevated. Because I feel like, and this goes for everything, you cannot heal in the same environment that you felt low in. So you need to be brought out of that environment. And that for me was my bedroom, for example. Going on walks, I started to walk my dog. Family game night, movie nights, just anything that's a distraction. It doesn't have to be how are you feeling today, what is wrong today, how would you like to cope with it, or how can we help you. Sometimes it's just a distraction, and that can help more times than actually talking about what could be going through your mind. For me, anyway.
It's brilliant. I'm so proud of you. I've got one more question for you. Do you have a go-to person? Is there a number in your phone that you think, my goodness, if anything's going on, I'm going to call that person?
Probably my best friend.
Okay.
Yeah, my best friend.
And do you find that as a nice safety net?
Yeah, I do believe everyone should have that person. As much as I said poetry is mine, you should have that physical person that, for example, if I'm crying, poetry can't hug me. But if I was to call my best friend, I know they could hug me, they could distract me, they could talk to me. So having that one person is definitely, you feel much more safe instead of feeling alone. And even though I say I have that one person, I could happily list you many people that have told me they are there for me and I know are. So I know I'm not alone.
Yes.
And yeah, there's a lot of people I could go to, and people do make that very clear to me. But I think when you're just in that mindset, it's tunnel vision almost. But that one person I would always go to, definitely.
Miss Wallace. I think every parent in this room today wants to adopt you. It's just like you're so honest, and thank you, and you're helping us. You're helping us to understand how things work. Yeah, so thank you for sharing. So
Okay, thank you for having me.
All right, Nicole, your hand is up. Please do go ahead.
No, it was just I was agreeing with what I can't pronounce her name either.
Miss Wallace
was saying. It's quite vital. I think it's quite vital for a young person, a child or a young person, to not have that fear factor to be able to speak to their parent. But if they feel that they can't speak to their parent, to have that trusted person. And there was a time when, I mean, my circle, which is quite small, but my circle knows, like, when my children get on my nerves, I'll say, please talk to my children, because I can't talk to them. But, you know, with my daughter in particular, she had a moment and she just wouldn't engage with me at all. And it was one person, a family member tried, and unfortunately, that family member then broke her trust. So she will never talk to that family member about anything that's going on with herself again. Yeah, they did. But I've got one friend, and she knows that she can go and talk to her about anything. And even though my friend may come and say to me on the quote, like, this is what she said, Nicole, but wait for her to tell you. I know that she can go to that person and she knows that she can go to that person any time of the day or night. She even turned up at her house one time. She's like, look, I'm having a really bad time. I can't deal with life right now. Can I just come and stay at your house? And, you know, my friend phone said, oh, Nicole, your daughter's here. Oh, okay, yeah, cool. And I think that's quite important, even for us all, you know, if it's not our children, knowing that somebody else's child can come and speak to us about whatever may be troubling or concerning them, and knowing that they've got us as a trusted person. I think that's quite important. And the social media thing, I totally agree on. I've told my daughter, and this is where I recognize patterns with her as well, because where she's on certain social media, and it's having a negative impact on her. If I say to her, are you on such and such? Yeah, mum. Well, this is why you're behaving the way you're behaving. No, it's not.
Sorry, Nicole, help me here, because I'm hearing the such and such, and perhaps
social media site.
Like which one?
For instance, with my daughter, it was Snapchat.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Snapchat was, yeah, no, not anything, but yeah, Snapchat was, and I mean, she's on it still, but there's certain people that she is on there with her, and when they are not necessarily being, for want of a better word, nice, or in her perception, for what she perceives as being nice, it will affect her, and it affects her mood quite a lot. And when I said to her, have you been on Snapchat? Yeah. And I was like, you know, such as, oh, but it's all right, because we have our group chats and I'm saying to her, you have to come off with those things sometimes. Even me, myself, as a grown adult, I've come off of most social. I think I'm only on Instagram now and LinkedIn, everything else, because there was a time even with Facebook, and every time I logged into Facebook, I'm just seeing news that I don't want to see. Right. And I said, you know what? I'll get rid of it, because I don't want to have to keep opening it and looking on my timeline and I'm seeing stuff that I don't want to see, because that was having an effect on me. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I totally agree with, how do you pronounce your name? Janae? Janae, yeah.
Think of Zsa Zsa Gabor. Is it Zsa Zsa? That's what we call her, Zsa.
Zsa Zsa.
All right. Oh, brilliant points raised here. I've got a few people I want to get in, and then somehow I've got to get back round the circle, starting back with Serbs. But every time this man's online, I have to have a pull from him because he's such an influencer in the city of Bristol. Um, yeah. Look, and I say this seriously because he is an influencer. He's connected, and people talk to him about family matters all the time. And I'm just wondering, and he's a man of the cloth. Bishop Vera, thank you for taking time this evening to be with us. Just to fathom what your perception is, how you possibly listen to the young people. Because I know you've got a great relationship with some of these younger people. How do you observe this mental health challenges? What do you notice?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I've had a number of the young people in recent months who have come and said that they feel suicidal. I'm working with two individuals right now, working to try and help them to navigate some of the perceived difficulties that they're in. And, being a father, being a pastor, being a friend, a support, constant support. The only thing I can say is this, that my understanding of how to help our young people is, first of all, I'm not a pastor that comes and say, well, what's wrong? What is the problem? That relationship begins at a very young age. I start to develop that relationship. They don't call me Pastor Ray; they call me Uncle Ray, and that in itself helps them to feel that they belong. Um, for instance, I will go to school evenings with them. So especially where there's a single mother and you've got a young chap who's quite boisterous and active, I will go to the school meetings, and he's accountable to me. Not, so it's building up that relationship, that mentoring. We have a system now in the local church where all the guys, especially those guys from the streets who have come to Christ, and there are a number of them that's come to Christ. We've just had a couple more come in, and they mentor the young boys and the young men. They mentor them. They take them on and they guide them, not in so much in Christianity, but in life's journey. That is so important. And we are, we are the perceived gang, if you like, where we go out on the streets, we talk to young people, we find out what their concerns are, the jobs, lack of opportunity, racism, lack of housing, finances, peer pressure, all these things. So for a young chap who wants to prove himself, who wants to be a man, he's feeling pressurized. He doesn't belong in that environment. He's feeling pressurized. And then he locks himself away because he knows that life is wrong. So he locks himself away in his room and he starts to smoke the weed and so forth. And it's a difficult cycle to break. But if you can, first of all, develop the relationship with the individual, not preach to them, not say, I'm here to rescue you, but I'm just going to be your friend, and just sit alongside them. And when they mess up, they don't need you to tell them they messed up. They know that already. So when they mess up, you sit there and say, how are we, include myself, how are we going to come through this? How are we going to navigate out of this? Um, um, I work with Avon and Somerset Police to help young boys. So first person they'll call is me, and I'll go in and I'll sit with the young guys and I'll say, right, okay, we're going to start a 6-month course, and if you mess up, you're going to go to prison. If you stay with me, you're going to get off. And no doubt they choose that option. Yeah. So a lot of the young boys, especially the police now, are recognizing that a lot of the young boys, they're suffering from depression. They're suffering from all mental disturbances that no one's picked up until now. And that is because we've got involved with Avon and Somerset Police, and we've brought the experts in. And so we sat with them and we've helped them to identify victims, not criminals. Yeah, some of these guys are victims, and they carried a knife not for aggression but for protection. All right, and in time past, even Somerset Police would pick them up and charge them with possession of an offensive weapon. And the boys would then go into the system, and that's it. But now we have a program where we're trying to help them, we're trying to develop them, we're trying to help them to come through. And thank God, we had two individuals now who've just finished Queen's in London. Had we not rescued this young man, he would have been in a difficult situation. And we've got one coming through one of the universities in Birmingham. He's just finished engineering, and he's got a good job up in Preston. What we've also done is built relationships up with industry, and so therefore, if we have a young man or a young woman, we can direct them to industry. So there's a lot of way we can help our young people in a practical way. But my recommendation is that you journey with them through their difficulties, sit with them, and be their friend. I don't know if that helps.
Of course, it really does. And thank you so much, Bishop Vera. It's fantastic, the work you're doing. Can we, ladies and gentlemen, give him just encourage him? He's doing a great job down in Bristol. Well done, Bishop. Thank you. And your practical involvement, getting involved with those young boys, holding them to account for 6 weeks can't be easy. It takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time, but the threat is that if they mess up, they will go down for a long time. So if I say meet me at a park, or we're going to go down to the we're now in a partnership with a boxing club gym, and they work their aggression out in the gym. And they try to take it on Pastor Ray, but there you go. But yeah, so we go down to the gym. We have a boxing session. We do our workout sessions in the park and things like that, and it helps them. And this year we're doing a planned trip to France if the situation lives, and the church is paying everyone's fees, and we're all going to go out there, and there's this youth empowerment week, and we're gonna take them out of the environment and take them to a countryside environment. Food, might not like the food, but there you go.
Brilliant work.
I told them they've got to share bunk beds yet, but there you go. We'll
keep up the good work, Bishop. Well done. Really, really good work. Thank you. Oh, wow. This is fascinating. I want to get back to Elle and Miss Wallace with regards to toxic positivity. That's a powerful... it's almost like it doesn't make sense.
Does it? That's why I was totally shocked when she even mentioned it earlier. I was like,
about it.
I feel like I'm always learning from the youngsters nowadays. So when she said, I felt like I was in a therapy session when she explained what it meant. So I'm going to give it over to you, Jana, and you can tell us again what it means.
Okay, so yeah, just before we were speaking about mental health, for example, just preparing for this, the Zoom call, and I brought up toxic positivity. So toxic positivity is when, for example, I may disclose that I'm feeling suicidal or I'm feeling depressed or down, and the response being something like other people have it worse, or things will get better, or everything will be okay, it will be all right. It's almost dismissing the fact that these are genuine feelings that I'm feeling, and instead of being listened to, as we have spoken about, it is listening to respond instead of listening to understand. And as much as we say communication is key, I do believe that comprehension is key as well. You cannot address or communicate how you feel without the receiving end comprehending what you're actually saying and trying to help you with actions instead of words, or the words actually meaning something instead of it being something you might read in a therapy leaflet, or or one of those, just those corny quotes, they can be seen as toxic positivity because it completely dismisses how the person is feeling. So toxic positivity is being positive to the point where it comes across as toxic to the person that is feeling a certain type of way. Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. And I think most of us have been guilty of that, especially if we're trying to encourage someone.
Yeah.
You know, especially if it's a teenager who has become a bit sluggish, and you compare to those people who are suffering or struggling, and you think there's nothing wrong with your situation, you know, and we do that. We do it too.
And even in situations, for example, where I don't know, and I would say myself, I'm even guilty of it, where someone may say they feel suicidal and your answer is, but how would your mum feel, or how would your relatives feel? In that situation, you are straight away causing the person to feel guilt towards what they are feeling, when what they need is to not feel that, because the fact that they are still here means that they must feel guilt for the people around them because they haven't done anything, and they are coming to you to address that this is what they want to do, but they care so much about those around them that they are not. So to bring up other people in a situation where it's come to the point where they feel they have nobody, but they're thinking of everybody, it's very conflicting. It's like a state of limbo. So to say, but you have this person and you have this person, it doesn't help. That could also be toxic positivity, I feel like.
So just before I move on, Janae, sorry, Miss Wallace, is there something that you would expect from someone you speak to? I mean, because listening, do you expect eye contact? Do you expect them to stop what they're doing? How do you know when someone's listening?
Eye contact, not necessarily. I just feel the best thing that someone could do, and I often do it to make sure people understand that I'm listening, is repeat what they have said and often question it, or I will respond to all parts of their explanation and try and not miss any part out, because often I feel like as people we are guilty of focusing on what we perceive as important, whereas to that person it could be the reverse order. So if, for example, I say apples and grapes, but you address grapes, apples to me may be more important. So to address both things that I've spoken about would show that you're listening, I feel like. It's not that I expect it, but I think it's a good technique to use to question what they may have last spoken about and go through each of their explanations and points.
Brilliant. Thank you, Janae.
Yeah.
Jodine had a question, and that wonderful question I'm wanting to push through to Dr. Linda Lightbourne. The question is, as parents, how do you foster communication from a young age? Good evening, Dr. Lightbourne.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
How do you foster
communication?
The first thing, I have 3 children. Okay? 3 children who are intensely different from each other. Intensely different. And I will put it in here, and I don't think I'm over it, but one of them did try to commit suicide. She took overdose of pills of Tylenol, and thanks be to God, she was pumped, able to get it pumped out of her system, and she is absolutely fine today. But that was a horrible time. One thing that I decided, there's 10 years between my daughter and my son. And so when my son was a teenager, I wanted to do things with him. I was expecting him to not want to do things with me. So I asked him, what did he want to do? He said he wanted to do karate. So here's me doing karate with my son. And in my defense, I got up to temporary black belt. I got pretty good at it. But he, on the other hand, was invited to Brazil to compete. And he came back with 6 gold medals in karate. Now, no one's going to give me a gold medal for karate. Let me tell you, I'm not that good. But we did, it was something we did together. We kept doing things together, and it had to be what he wanted to do. Okay? With my grandson, I can't play basketball. God, I'm hopeless. I can't shoot a basketball to save my life. But I do it with my grandson because that's what he wants to do. And it's out of my comfort zone, completely out of my comfort zone. I'd rather do a page of algebra, but you know, give me some math, I'll figure it out. But I have to do what's important to them. And we had some deep conversations on the way to and from those karate classes, especially after the karate class, when we got all our aggression out, when we did all the kicks, when we did all the hits and all the yaha, whoa, you know, when we did all of that, then we were both ready to talk, and then we could clear our minds, clear our space, clear our internals, if you will, and then have a really deep, non-surface conversation. But what Jaja is saying, listen with the ears of the other person, is huge. Because they say, well, I'm not having a bad day. I'll say, well, I'm having a worse day. Well, you're not feeling well. Well, I'm feeling well. No, tell me about what you're feeling. Tell me about what's going through your mind. And then I'll ask clarifying questions. I think I heard you say, is that what you meant? Or is that what you, did you mean that? Or am I missing something? Help me understand. No. You see what I'm saying?
There are situations where someone could, for example, I could say to someone, I feel this way, and they say they feel worse. Again, that is toxic. Not even toxic. That's just in the attention and the focus from one person to another.
Exactly. Yeah. And then don't say, and what I said on Tuesday, don't say, I know how you feel. No, you don't. No, you don't. You know, I mean, sorry, all the guys in here, but until a man has a baby, you don't know how we feel. You know what I'm saying? You don't. I'm sorry, you just don't. But, you know, you can ask me questions that help me understand that you are actually listening, that you care enough to not dismiss how I feel as something that's not as bad as I'm trying to make it out to be.
This is fascinating, and I'm going to plug something here. I'm going to say, please go back and listen to Listening with the Third Ear. Third ear listening to understand. It's on our YouTube channel. Please do listen to it because it's a key. I'm going to shut down at 10 minutes. We've got 9 minutes. I'm going to give Jaja probably 5 minutes to the end to close us out in a poem. Anything you want, just to share your poetic prowess. But before we come to you, Serbs, give us some more strategies. How are we going to engage with these young people who need us more than ever? Parenting is probably the most difficult job on the planet. And it's got a bit harder.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I do, particularly with my daughter Maya, we actually have a date night. Nice. Where we spend time doing, movie, whether it's Netflix, popcorn, whatever she wants. And that's something that I've had to factor in and make the time to do it, because it's showing, you're showing your child that, you care, they're important, they matter. And that's something that's really worked well with us, and just to be consistent with it as well, because, you can start something off and then it dwindles down, sort of thing. And yeah, so that was definitely something that worked. I cannot stress enough just the communication and listening, and like Miss Wallace said, not to minimize how somebody's feeling, sort of thing. And you have to really be all ears. You have to be all in. Drop everything you're doing. Literally, you can't be half in, half out. You've got to just lay everything aside and be with that person at that moment. You know, I've had Maya's friends, her friends that want to talk to me. They sort of say, "Oh, your mum's amazing." So, you know, she's really listens, that kind of stuff. And it's nice to know that you can be friends with your daughter's friends, in a sense, you know, because it's a different relationship, sort of thing. But the key thing is just to keep listening, actively listening, and to communicate with one another. It's just so important. And yeah, absolutely, not to minimize what they're feeling or make it about you. Don't make it about you. Don't ever make it about you, sort of thing. And know that we're going to make mistakes, and it's okay. You're not a failure as a person, as a parent, and it's okay. And fess up and own up. You know, say sorry. I've had to say sorry to Maya a few times.
Yes.
You know, it's hard, but I've had to do it. But yeah, so that's my take on it. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. This is brilliant stuff. I want to do a quick recap. So we've got to listen more. We've got to make it about them.
Mm.
We've got to get involved in the things that they enjoy.
Yep.
I like that one about a date night. An evening for them. If you've got more than one child, maybe you want to choose different nights or rotate it a bit. But make some special time for each one. Yeah. We've had to do homework, parenting roles, as well as school teacher roles over the. So maybe get involved with their schoolwork. That's a major pressure point for so many of these young people, whether it's GCSE, whatever age of school. If you happen to have a black boy, the society tells us that he's failing, or that type of person is failing at all key stages. So they need some support. Is it about sit down and do your maths? Or is it about how you're getting on? And you know what? They might lie to you. They might say, I'm doing really well. But at least they know that you know. They know that you are asking the question, that you're there, your presence. And sometimes your presence can be enough. And then after a while, you could say, well, you know, it comes a matter of time when the reports come in and they weren't doing as good as they say. So you can ask the question. So I think we are learning as people in 2021 to change the things that don't work for us as parents. The stuff that we learnt from our parents that formed us into what we were, we have the permission to change it. Because I like what Dr. Lightbourne said. They're intensely different. Our children are intensely different amongst themselves, and they are different to us. Are you with me? And we are completely different in behaviors or exposure to how our parents were. So generations have changed. How do we bridge that gap? Listen a bit more. Get involved. Let them be them. Give them that safety net that's surrounding that space. We've literally run out of time. I can officially say it now. But I want to hand over to Janae, Jaja, Miss Wallace, and really do want to celebrate you for what you've shared tonight. You're helping us. We need you to come back on and bring some of your friends and teach us. We're willing to learn. Okay? Thank you. So please, over to you, my dear.
Okay. So this isn't on my Instagram yet, but I wrote it about 2 weeks ago, and it's about becoming the person that I want to be, becoming my better self. And it is called Midnight Memories. When the universe chooses you to stand up, you can never find a moment where your soul will sit down. You prosper until your feet feel like the clouds are your ground, and you levitate above negativity, Forcing yourself to speak to the stars spiritually, you evolve, grasping onto every last clove and seedling that's left to grow from your flower bed. You make amends with the omens that tried to burst your blessings. You rise up and don't stop until you become the person in your alternate dimension. You become the person who wouldn't even begin to question their worth or their sanity, the one who has their independence, has found their soulmate and succeeded in inner peace. You no longer grieve lost people, and you don't turn yourself into a map to heal people. You allow yourself to breathe. You become the epitome of all your manifestations. Don't sit down when the universe chooses you. Thank you.
Wow. 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 Thank you. That's a really good, prudent reminder for us to rise up, yeah? Rise up. Thank you, Jaja.
Thank you.
Really, really wonderful.
Brilliant.
I'm not being, I hope this is not patronizing to you, but I can't believe you're 17.
I
Are you with
believe I
me?
haven't. Oh, no.
You're a
I believe I
genius.
haven't.
You're
Thank
bright. You shine brightly. Well done to you.
Mm.
Well to you. And to everyone else, let's take a leaf out of Serb's book. She's added value to who she is. She's studied a bit more. She's doing her counseling in order to understand relationships, understand that communication process, to be a bit more cognitive about how people think, to have some congruence, to be able to ask the question, to reflect, to listen, to pay attention. Yeah. And listen, if you're finding that you're struggling, I'm going to suggest that you seek help early. I'm going to plug into the chat right now a link that, let me quickly do this. That link there gives you some immediate help for organizations, whether it be Young Minds or many others, many others. They're agencies, they're charitable organizations that are there for you and your children and your neighbors and your family members, right? Scour through. If you're struggling, don't struggle on your own. If you're in need to talk to someone, there may be someone in this cafe who you have just gelled with, and you might think, actually, I need to talk to you. Ricky's got a lovely looking face. He might be a he might be a good guy, but no, you get my point. It might be just, sorry, I need to speak to you. But let's not suffer alone. Let's pay attention, look out for behavior changes in our children, and choose the right time to have that conversation. And in some instances, the conversation is now. But if it's edgy, just be sensitive. It's not about you right now, right? We will manage a bit later. Let's manage our children. Let's make sure that they're fine. And at least whatever's going on outside, let it be nice and be in their mindset to say, I can't wait to get home. Are you with me? I can't wait to get home, because that's my place of asylum, is safety there. All right? So let's do what we can as parents to raise our children to think well, to live well, and be well. So